Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Traveling EFL Teachers series. My name is Ollie, and in this series I interview teachers from all around the world to give you first-hand knowledge about what life is like in that country. In today's episode, I talk to Eduardo from Brazil about living and teaching EFL in China. We talk about visas, we talk about looking for a job, we talk about things that shocked him. We talked about living in the country and saving money for travel. Don't forget guys to subscribe to my channel and like this video, and make sure you check out the other episodes in the Traveling Teachers series to see what it's like being an EFL teacher who is traveling the world. Okay, let's get to it. Welcome everyone to another episode of Traveling Teachers. Today we have Eduardo from Ready Go Expat, his YouTube channel, so be sure to check him out. How's it going, Eduardo?
I'm good, how are you?
Not too bad, doing okay in Bolivia. Whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm in Recife, Brazil. It's like in the northeast on the coast. So yeah, it's like 3 hours by plane from São Paulo.
And you're from there, right?
Yeah, it's my hometown. Yeah, I was born here.
Awesome, nice. Tell us a bit about your YouTube channel.
Sure. So when I was in China, my last year, I was like, I've been learning so much about not only Chinese culture, not only Asian culture, but like friends from like Ghana, Cape Verde, Australia, European countries. And I'm like, it's such a mixture of like, different cultures and stuff. And I was like, I need to show the world a bit of this, because I think that for people who don't travel much, it's kind of like, I wanted to like lower the impact that you would have when you would listen to someone speaking like English in a different accent, or learn about their culture, or learn about their music. Like I love music. I love world music, for instance. So I wanted to show that a bit to the world. So of course, in my channel, if you're planning, for instance, to move to China, there's going to be a lot of videos about China, about living there, expat perspective, a foreigner in China, etc. But also there are going to be videos. I have some videos about, living in Italy or other countries as well, because always with the perspective of a foreigner in a different country, a foreigner, who has moved abroad. Like that's the idea of the channel.
Yeah, no worries. And if you want to get in contact with him, I will leave a link to his channel in the bio, and yeah, get typing. And I got you on today because I want to talk about your experience teaching ESL in China. So why did you choose to teach English in China, and what city were you in?
All right. I was so first of all, I was a teacher here in Brazil already, because a lot of people go to China. Some of them have no experience, but then in China, that's okay. Like with a bachelor's degree and a TEFL certificate, you can, no experience, start teaching there. I was teaching in Brazil for like 13 years, and then I was like, I really need a challenge, and I was working here in like language school, so similar to Language Connection, we teach kids, teens, adults. And I was like, okay, I need to do something different. And I've always known that like I wanted to settle down in Europe. Like I love Europe, like absolutely love it. And I was like, okay, so I'm not that old. I can still go and like, have an adventure for like 2 years. So my plan was like 2 years in China. Oh, and why China? Because when I checked jobs online, it's by far, I mean, at least it was 6 years ago, 5 years ago, it's by far like the largest market for English language teachers in the world. And Europe has a lot of restrictions from non-EU citizens. So that was really hard for me. And yeah, so I was actually looking into Istanbul, Turkey, Russia, and China. And then China, like I applied for like, I don't know, 5 jobs. And I did the interview for like 2 or 3 of them. And then I ended up choosing this school, which was it's still run by a guy from the UK, and he's married to a Chinese citizen. So he opened the school, and like only 2 years before I got there, he had opened the school. So brand new, and I took the job there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stay in China for 2 years, travel around Asia, because all teachers do that, because I mean, not for you, but like for us, it's like the other side of the world. So like,
yeah,
I was like, I'll go there, but then I want to see, Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, Laos, Cambodia. Like I want to see most of the things, Japan, and then settle down in Europe. But then I ended up staying for almost 5 years. But
you were there for 5 years?
Yeah, 4.5. Because
wow.
the last 6 months, I was still teaching my kids there, but I was in Brazil because of the COVID-19, pandemic. And then I came here on holidays and I couldn't go back, but it was still fine. I mean, I was teaching the kids here online. But yeah, the total number, yeah, that would add up to like 5 years.
Wow. And what city were you in China?
First year, I was in Qingdao. It's spelled Qingdao, Qingdao. It's actually their most popular beer. So you can buy it in the UK, like Europe. It's called, Qingdao. So I was in Qingdao for a year. That's where I worked at the language school. And then for the second year, I moved to Nanchang, which is, if you go like Shanghai on the coast and you just go inland for, I don't know, 4 hours, 3 hours by train, 4 hours by train, you get it, Nanchang. Because China is so big. Like I was comparing it to Brazil. Like Brazil is such a big country. And honestly, if you live anywhere in like the 3 southern states of Brazil, and then you go for a weekend to like the Northeast, you'll be like, oh, this is not the same country, because it is so different. So I was like, listen, China is bigger than Brazil. I cannot just stay 1 year in the North and say, okay, I know China. No. So that's why I was like, I want to go south. So I went to this province, which like Qingdao is a very wealthy province in China, okay? And it's not far from Beijing. So then I went south to Jiangxi province, the city of Nanchang. And I stayed there for 1 year. And then I moved like 40 minutes away by train. It's like 100 kilometers from Nanchang, this city in the countryside. So like even smaller. Yeah. And I stayed there for 3 years. So when we talk about like proportions in China are hilarious, because when you talk about small city, this small city had 1 million people living there. Like, yeah, it's a very small city in China, So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about like, going to the countryside with 1 million people living in the small city. Yeah, were you only were you the only foreigner, or were there other foreigners there?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. There were about, in the whole city, I think there were less than 20 foreigners, but most of them were in the downtown area because they have a university there with foreign teachers, and they have 2 training centers. They call it training centers, language schools, and 2 kindergartens. So they had like about 18 teachers there. And then in the suburbs where I lived, where this big school was, I worked for a public school there, but I didn't teach the public school. I mean, I don't want to put it that way, but yeah, the kids that I taught, they were in an international program. So the kids from the public school, they were going to do the Gaokao, which is the university entrance exam. Okay. My kids didn't do that. I was preparing them to go abroad. So most of my kids, I mean, all of my kids went abroad. Most of them went to the US, Australia, Canada, and a few to the UK. So it's an international program within the public school. So yeah, so that was my last 3 years. I was getting these kids ready. So instead, I didn't only teach general English, but I also taught like TOEFL prep course, for example.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry, not TOEFL, TOEFL.
TOEFL, yeah, exam prep classes. Yeah. So you were teaching basically like teenagers for the majority of your time there.
Yeah, my first year in China was 70% kids, very young learners and teenagers, and 30% adults. My last 4 years in China, yes, years like 10th, 11th, 12th grade, high school.
Yeah, I see. And like, how did you go about finding these schools? Just through a Google search or through contacts, or?
I knew no one before I went to China. Like no one that was like, oh, I'm here. It's great teaching here. Like literally, like there was nobody there.
Scary.
I mean, I found like there was like a friend of a friend, but I never even got in touch with this person. So I was like, so I went on TOEFL.com. TOEFL.com is where I got my first 2 jobs in China, actually. I don't know, I really like the website because it's you can apply directly to the school, or you can apply through the website. So you just post your CV there, update it and everything, and then there's a fast apply button, and some of the schools, you have to apply directly. Like if you want a job with the British Council, you can find a job there, but you apply directly to the British Council website, for example. Yeah. So I found both of my jobs there, and as I said, like, because I didn't know anyone there, I was like, I will try to get a school where, at least the boss or someone there is also a foreigner, because so I know I thought it was like safer, not because of the Chinese, but it's just because I didn't know anyone. I didn't know how it would work. I wanted a contract in English as well and stuff like that. But when you get there, you see that um, it's not like, even if you go there with Chinese bosses, you have a contract which is bilingual and it's not that, but still. So that's how I found the first job. And then while I was there, I was kind of like, I'm not gonna say tired of teaching like at language schools, because that's my background in Brazil. But I was like, I was kind of tired of like at 1 p.m. teaching 5-year-olds, and then at 3 p.m. 13-year-olds, and then at 6 p.m. adults business English, and then IELTS prep later. I was like,
Yeah.
so I was like, you know what? I think I need like to, So that's when I moved to an international program in Nanchang, and then another international program in Fuzhou, the smallest city.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you were saying about trying to find at least a foreigner who works there, or at least your contractors in English. I think when I first moved to Bolivia, I knew the person here, and other teachers that I've spoken to, I feel like they feel slightly more comfortable if like the person is fluent in English, or that they have the documents in English, just to feel a little bit more comfortable. I mean, there's others that probably don't think that, but I think, for me personally, and obviously for you, that's an important factor for like teachers who are thinking about moving abroad. Awesome. So tell me about like a typical day as an ESL teacher in China.
Okay, I'll just briefly talk about when I worked in a language school, because most of the jobs in China are in language schools, training centers, with young learners. So I would get to school at 1 p.m. and I would prepare, classes. But then the thing is, in my contract was like I had 25 hours of teaching per week. So in one day, I could end up teaching 2 hours or 6 hours. Yeah, I never knew. Like, it would change literally like every week. And sometimes at the end of the day, they would say, "Oh, tomorrow you have a new student." Right. But my schedule was from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. from Tuesday to Friday. And then on Saturday from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. Ooh. And I would have, so I would have Sunday, Monday off. And I would have, as I said, 25 hours teaching. And then the times I was not teaching, I would be planning classes. That's basically it. But I had to be in school. Okay, I couldn't just leave and stuff. And then in my trainings, after I moved from the training center to an international program, both schools are very similar, 8 to 5, and 2 hours and a half lunch break, which is like, I would literally go back home, cook or heat up my lunch, 45-minute nap. And then like all the students do that in China, actually. They always take a nap. Like siesta is something, is like, the word is Spanish, but in China, it's like everyone, teachers, students, all do that. So, and then I would work. Yeah. But then at these schools, I had 16 classes. Every class was like 45 minutes. And at the other school, I had 21 classes, but again, 45 minutes, so.
Yeah. And you said that most of them were young learners. Are they like kids and stuff like that?
In the first school, yeah, they were, I know there were teachers there, like Dak, your coworker, your colleague. Dak used to work with 2 kids who were like 3 or 4. And I was like, I don't know how he does that, because so I didn't get these very, very young learners. I got like, they were like, the youngest group I got was like 6 till 10. That was like 30% of my students. And then some like early teens, late teens, and then 30% in the evenings, like the adult students.
The adults. So you basically taught every age group, I guess. And you said that you wanted to leave Brazil and for a challenge, right? What challenges did you actually face when you got there in terms of the lessons? I want to talk about the language, and talk about like, you know, navigating life in China.
Yeah, when I mentioned challenge, it's because like I've traveled quite a like to I think almost 30 countries. And then when you go like around when you travel around like South America, you know, in a way, I know it's like Argentina is different. It's very different from Brazil, of course,
Yeah.
Paraguay, Uruguay, okay. But it's still, we're still South American. The language is not that different. I mean, especially if you speak Portuguese, I speak a bit of Spanish. It was fine. When you go to Europe, of course, each country has, you know, its own culture, language, but in a way, and also North America, like when I went to the US, in a way, you know how to navigate, you know, and even if you go to a small town, you can still get by, you know, with a if it's not English, but like you can still get by. In China, it's like you cannot even read anything. Like it's crazy. And I was like, I want that because I miss having this, you know, first impact of getting to a place. Like when I got to Amsterdam when I was 20 years old, and I was like, oh my God, I cannot even understand what they're saying here. But then of course, China is not like what it was 20 years ago. Most of the signs, if you take like public transport, like the subway, plane, airports, train stations, they all have the translation in English to most of the signs, so you don't get lost. But when I got there, so one of the things that I thought was like, because I'm very like, when I travel, I try to be like super independent and do my stuff, do my research and stuff. I did all my research. I got to China, and it's not a country that you can say, oh, I'll go to a bank now and open a bank account. Like, it's even if you are like in the biggest cities, you still might get in trouble, like because you need someone there. So most schools provide a bilingual assistant. He or she will help you find accommodation if that's the case. In my case, it was already provided by the school, but they'll help you find that, open a bank account, buy a SIM card, do everything. Most schools do that, and it's fine. Like they are, like it's not a big problem. And I'm talking about Qingdao, which is 8 million people, and Fuzhou, which is like some Chinese people don't even know where it is. So, and still, it was fine. But the challenges were not being able to speak the language, not getting to places and not knowing like what kind of meat is that? Like, is that, you know, beef, pork? I want this kind. Like, it's just impossible. And then, of course, there is Google Translate, but it's not the same at the beginning. And because they're very nice to foreigners. I mean, depending where you go, there will be like, you know, just 10 foreigners living there, or not even that sometimes. So because they're very nice, they approach and they talk to you. And at the beginning, it's really hard. After like 1 year there, I could speak a little bit. After 5 years, I could still speak a little bit.
Yeah.
but you can still talk. Like they're so nice. They're like it's nice. But I think that was the thing at first, is the language, not being able to understand. You cannot you have to download the Chinese apps. So like, because of course buying stuff there and stuff, it's all through your phone. Like, so that was the challenge at first, I think. But what helped me was my colleagues. I had 9 colleagues who were also foreigners, and most of them were experiencing the same thing for the first time. So I'd say that like in countries where the culture is so different, the expat bubble actually really helps, like at the beginning.
Yeah. And going back to the language, I mean, when I arrived in Bolivia, I know Spanish isn't that far from English, like, you know, relatively speaking. And I did Spanish at university. I arrived here and I was like, holy cow, I've got no idea what I'm doing. So thankfully I can speak Spanish now, but I can't even imagine what it would be like in China. But yeah, crazy. So it's good that there was a support system there to help you, which is and you know, I see jobs for China all the time, and they're like, the pay seems crazy. Like, what's the cost of living relative to like the salary of a teacher in China? Let's think about the language institute, like the most popular ones. So like in general, can you save money and can you travel? Did you travel to all the countries that you wanted to?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to know, when you go to China, it's like to decide what are you going to focus on? What's your purpose? Why are you traveling there? Why are you going to live there? Because I'm saying this because at the same school, I mentioned that the other 9 coworkers, like I think half of them were just there. Like they wanted to, you know, experience China, but they wanted to travel as much as possible within China and around, you know, Southeast Asian countries. for these teachers, and they never complain. Like they had enough money to travel and to live there and stuff, because it's relatively cheap, especially with the salary of like a foreigner there. We get usually double or sometimes three times what the average Chinese gets. So that was my first. That was the first. My first aim was like get to know the country and stuff. So at the beginning, I was able to save, I think, around 30% of my salary. Okay, um, because language that's what an average language school pays. When you go to international program, I was getting like more than double what I got at the language school. So and because it was like my third year, fourth year, I changed my I was like I've been to Beijing 4 times, just for you to have an idea. Like I love Beijing, but like 4 times to the Great Wall, 3 times. So like
Yeah.
I've traveled to Shanghai and the bigger cities and also smaller cities, and I've traveled to like Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines. So yeah, I've traveled quite a bit, but I was still able to save at my last 2 years maybe 60%, because that was my aim. But that was my aim. Let's like save as much as possible. So the important thing is to know what do you want to do while you're there. Like, do you want to? Some American students, American teachers there were paying their student loan, and that was their aim. So I wanted to save as much as possible in the last 2-3 years I was there. And one thing very important to mention is that most jobs, they'll pay for your accommodation. So you'll either live, like I lived in my first year with 2 other co-workers in the same apartment, or they'll pay for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment for you. So you don't pay for that. Sometimes they also give you a monthly stipend. So they'll give you, I don't know, 5,000 yuan if you go to Shanghai. And with that money, you can rent a bedroom, maybe, or a studio 1-bedroom apartment, maybe, depending where you are. But that's something very important to tell anyone who's thinking about getting a job in China. Where you live is gonna affect your savings, your and even your cost of living. Like, because when you are in Shanghai, like a bowl of noodles is 3 times the price as I was paying in the small city that I lived. So
Yeah.
you got to be careful with that. Like, what do you want? Do you want a big expat community? Yeah, go to Shanghai, Shenzhen, Beijing. Cool. If you want to live more like the Chinese, or like a more, not even like the Chinese, but like a simple life with with fewer Western products every week, and Western bars and restaurants, then you can save a lot. Like I had friends there who were saving 70% of their income, and I was like, yeah.
Good for you. Yeah, awesome. And when you arrived in China, is there anything that really stood out that really like not shocked you, but was like, wow, this is different. We don't do this in Brazil, or I've never experienced this before. Because I know here in Bolivia, like when I arrived, I was like, wow, the traffic is crazy. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to get run over. Is there anything in China that just like was like, wow?
Okay, yes. And the first impression, I have to mention the airport in Beijing. So I was like, I'm in the capital, and I was waiting for my flight to the next town, like where I was going. So I spent like maybe 3 hours there. And I remember I got to this cafe. I was like, hi, can I have a cappuccino and a croissant and stuff? And like she spoke zero English. And I'm like, this is the largest city in the country. I mean, not the largest, but it's the capital city. Like, it's the largest airport, and like they don't speak English. I was like, wow, okay. But then of course that was 2015. It's different now. I mean, it's better now. But one thing you mentioned, the traffic in China, especially in small cities, it's like you get used to it. You get used to it. You start to. I think that you have to observe how the locals are doing. They just walk, and you're like, how can they do that? And then the more you observe them, it's easier. Like it's fine later. I'd say the traffic, but I have to say that what really, really shocked me was how everywhere in China, the biggest cities, the smallest cities, they're like buildings and skyscrapers and new roads and new metro, subway, new the high-speed train. Even in my small town, like they had a high-speed train that like it's 300 kilometers per hour. I was like, the infrastructure in China is insane. Like some people in Brazil, like my friends here, they think that, oh yeah, China is like Beijing, Shanghai is super rich and the rest is really poor. I'm like,
No.
gosh, like, no. So that was the most shocking thing. It's like how everywhere it's like, you know, buildings and everything changing. And there's a lot of people, like, there, like, a lot of people. Like, you go to the supermarket sometimes. Like, I don't go to the supermarkets on Sundays anymore because, yeah,
The experience was just like, wow.
yeah.
That's so funny. Awesome. Why should a teacher consider going to China to teach ESL for, you know, whatever period of time?
All right. I think that the first thing you have to think is like, if you just got your undergraduate degree, your BA, and you got no experience, and you want maybe a gap year before whatever, China is the perfect place because you can get a job with a BA undergraduate degree and a TEFL certificate, even if you do it online. 120-hour online TEFL, they accept that. And then just go there. So it's good to have this first. You get a job and stuff, and so it's good for these newly qualified teachers. Okay, if you are, you know, perhaps more qualified, you've done it for a couple of years, you got a CELTA, you know, maybe a master's or whatever. It's also great because you can get these other jobs that are for experienced teachers, and obviously they pay more. You have more benefits, and the standard for like teaching is super high. Like you have to teach these kids like how to get, like, you're getting them ready to get into like an American university, an Australian university. So it's not like, you know, it's tough, like
Pressure.
a lot of pressure. However, I must say something that changed a lot, and this is really important, I think, for anyone who's planning to go to China. When I moved there in 2015, a non-native speaker like myself, I was able to get a visa, a work visa, as an English teacher, even though I was non-native, because I have a BA in like teaching English, and I have, you know, CELTA, Delta, and other certificates. So that was okay. Today, you cannot get a Z visa, which is the work visa in China, as an English teacher, written there, English teacher, if you're not from one of the 26 English-speaking countries they have on a list. Or if you don't have let me say it again, if you don't have a passport from one of these countries, you cannot get this job legally. However, if you just type on YouTube, job in China without a degree or job in China non-native speaker, you'll find other possibilities. For instance, I know some people who go there as a student and they end up teaching. It's not legal, but it happens a lot. Another thing is some people go there and instead of having like English teacher on their visa, they have like manager or whatever assistant. So it happens like that sometimes. But all I'm saying is, like, since 2018, the government has been really serious about this. So be careful with that. Before you apply, check with the school if it's a Z visa and you'll have written English teacher on your Z visa. Because if they give you a business visa, student visa, whatever visa, you cannot work there. So just that's the most important thing, I'd say. And if you want to save up some money, China is perhaps, one of the best countries today. I know there are some countries like Oman, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, like these countries are also very good if you want to save up some money. But China is great because the cost of living is really low. Even if I compare it to like Japan and South Korea, for example, you know, it's lower than that.
It's lower. And one final point: is it safe for foreigners?
Yeah, and it's like totally safe.
Yeah.
Because especially when you ask any Brazilian who lives abroad, what do you think about this place? They're gonna mention safety in like the first sentence. For us, it's an issue. And I'm so not only from a Brazilian perspective, my coworkers were from England, you know, Ireland, other European countries. They said, like, I feel safer here than in London sometimes, depending where I'm going, you know, in some regions, some areas in London. Like, so it is extremely safe because they have all these cameras, and it's like Big Brother in a way. Like it's and I'm talking about the Chinese. Like for us, we cannot do anything. Like they're gonna see us like from far away, especially
Yeah.
if you have a beard or something. But for them, like it's they have cameras everywhere. So it's extremely safe. And when I say safe, I mean I walked for 30 minutes in Beijing at 4 a.m. waiting for the subway to start. In my town, the small one, the tiny town, I walked for, I don't know, 15 blocks to find barbecue. They love barbecue at like 1 in the morning. So they have these shops open till like 2, 3. So one day I just walked and I cycled. The only thing that happens there, and this has happened to some of my friends, is like you put your bike there or your scooter, and then the next day it might not be there. That's the only thing that I've seen it happen. And again, I'm talking here, Ollie, as a foreigner in China. I don't know how it is for like, you know, the Chinese and stuff like, but just talking to like my students and telling them what happens in like here, if I'm walking in Brazil at midnight or 10 p.m. with my phone, like we wouldn't do that. And they're like, but what? And my students don't understand. They're like, why? And I was like, no. They're like, they have guns. I'm like, yeah.
I know. I'm excited about Brazil, but I'm also obviously nervous. No worries. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time you've taken to be on my channel. It's been awesome.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks so much.